Today, we're going to talk about security. Security, unfortunately, is broken and requires a massive rethink. When we look at a business, it is built on relationships. These are relationships with employees, partners, and customers, and they depend on a bond of truth and confidence. The core and strength of this bond starts with identity and access. IAM is the first and primary means of connections. It connects employees to their roles, devices, and apps. It connects partners to your supply chain, and it connects customers to your brand and services. If these connections are broken, the bond erodes and the relationship suffers or breaks. As Warren Buffett says, it takes 20 years to build a relationship and 5 minutes to ruin this. What's becoming more and more disturbing is that passwords are causing a massive crisis that is eroding trust. When you look at breaches out there in the marketplace, currently 81% involve weak, stolen, or default passwords. To make things even worse, during a recent survey by Verizon, a majority of CEOs mistakenly believe that protecting from security vulnerabilities should be the top priority for their company. However, more than 10 times the number of breaches are a result of identity tactics than a result of vulnerabilities. This new threatscape requires a complete paradigm shift, one that rethinks and challenges the network perimeter based approach, one that puts identity at the foundation of this massive security rethink, one that removes trust from the network and redefines security to follow identity based on knowing the user and their device before granting access, and a paradigm shift that frees companies to move fearlessly into the modern cloudscape by not relying on implicit trust but enforcing a dynamic security policy that only trusts when verified. Unfortunately, trust is a massive can of worms. To accomplish this paradigm shift, we need to rethink access security using a zero trust security model. Connecting to a particular network must not determine which services you access. Access to apps and endpoints is granted based on what we know about you and what we know about your device. And access to apps and services must always be authenticated and authorized. Google is a great example of this. In 2011, Google started a project known as BeyondCorp. The mission of having every employee work successfully from untrusted networks without using a VPN. This was achieved in 2017 by deploying a zero trust security framework. The BeyondCorp principles are simple. Access to services will only be granted based on three things. One, what we know about you. Two, what we know about your device. Three, your access must be authenticated, authorized, audited, and encrypted. The Google BeyondCorp mantra is simple. Never trust, always verify. Idaptive provides a next generation identity access framework that's both simple and effective. This is done in a three-step process. First, we're going to verify every user trying to access applications. This is going to use technologies such as single sign-on to consolidate identities, and then multi-factor authentication to prove this is the correct user. From here, we will validate their device. This is done using enterprise mobility management, so policies can be used to decide if that device should be allowed to have access to various applications. This can be doing things like making sure it isn't jailbroke, maybe has a digital certificate. From here, we're going to intelligently limit access to applications, and this is done by using lifecycle management. So we can provision onboard, offboard users as they come in and out of an organization. Now, if we're going to do this every single time somebody tries to access an application, that certainly could be difficult on the user. So we then tie AI or user behavior analytics so we can take a look at that user and decide based on risk, should they be allowed access? When verifying the user, single sign-on allows us to reduce the attack vector by consolidating identities and reducing the number of accounts and passwords in use. It also makes it easier on the end user as there isn't as much to remember. To strengthen security and establish identity assurance, we apply multi-factor authentication everywhere. This is for all users, employees, partners, customers, and to all of the different applications, be those in the cloud or on-prem. By having modern multi-factor authentication, we can then do push notifications down to smartphones where no longer is it necessary to enter some sort of 6-digit PIN. But it is necessary to have a flexible system that can use different factors of authentication via text message or even using somebody else's token. And then to truly bolster security and bring this to the next level, it's necessary to introduce behavior based analytics. When behavior based analytics is introduced, we can take a baseline of what a normal behavior for our user is. And when we see them vary off that behavior, we can limit their access or step up authentication and make these decisions based on risk. When validating devices, it's important that only trusted devices are used to access resources. This starts by applying adaptive MFA at endpoint login. So when a user logs into their laptop or desktop, we know the correct user is logging in. Next, managing devices and apps on those devices is what allows us to ensure that it actually is the correct device we want to connect or we want a user to be allowed to use when connecting. And finally, as part of this device management process, we want to look at the security posture of that device to make sure that it complies with the company standards before allowing that user to access. Intelligently limiting access starts with lifecycle management. This is really the full life cycle of a user being onboarded into the company. Say they're entered into some sort of HR system, are given various roles for whatever their job may be. From there, those roles are then going to be used and fed into a system that's automatically going to provision them into the apps they need for their job. Over the time of working at this company, they may move into different job roles, get promoted, new systems come on and off. And with that, a system needs to be flexible and in place that will change what systems they have access to. And then as they come to the end of their spans at that company, we need to be able to completely remove access. Now, there's always going to be special use cases for applications someone may need access to. And this is where access request workflows come in. With Idaptive, we give the ability to have a platform in place where a user can go in and request access. This access might be to a new application they need for a time limited basis just to work on a project. It could be requesting access for an application they need for a long time. And as part of this then needs to be able to feed into various other systems, whether it's the likes of a SIM or some sort of ITSM, so we can fully track what is going on. And then finally, in limiting access, we need to take away the use of VPN for providing access just to an individual application. And with an app gateway, this allows us to have the ability to give users access just to the individual app that they need for their job and not to an entire part of the network. What truly makes Idaptive unique is that with many sources of data, this can be fed into various data lakes. So by knowing information about users, about their devices, we can apply machine learning across this to start making decisions about what is normal behavior, what is risky behavior, and then dynamically make decisions on access, such as to block that access, step up authentication, and require some sort of MFA response on top of that. And this can all be done real time. And then with this data, it can be shared with other platforms and systems. Idaptive's NextGen Access platform consists of two product sets. One is application services, which secures access to applications using technology such as single sign-on, a full provisioning and lifecycle management suite for onboarding and offboarding users, and an app access gateway to provide individual access to apps on-prem without the use of VPN. On the endpoint services side, this secures access to and from these endpoints. Part of this is with enterprise mobility management to provide context around mobile devices, MFA for login into these endpoints, and conditional access. So the level of access given to an application is dependent on the state of the device coming in on. On top of this, that crosses both of these platforms is our adaptive multi-factor authentication, which gives a highly flexible system providing many factors of authentication to fit all of the different needs of an organization. And finally, we wrap user behavior analytics so we can make real-time decisions based on risk. Having a mature identity practice is important because companies that do this have 50% fewer breaches and they spend 40% less on technology as a result of automation with onboarding and offboarding users. Companies find that when they adopt a next generation access platform such as Idaptive, they can be twice as confident when it comes to bringing on new customers and partners. Additionally, they find that they can be 66% more confident in adopting new mobile strategies. At Idaptive, we certainly believe in our strategy and vision. However, we also have the third party validation from the likes of Forrester, who says we're the leader in the IDaaS wave, Gartner, who ranks us as having the greatest critical capabilities in workforce to SaaS use cases and business to business use cases, along with Coppinger Cole, who says we have a clear market leadership with our cloud MFA. So certainly a product like ours should be considered on any shortlist. In short, why choose Idaptive? First, we address the top attack vector, which is compromised credentials. This is a result of weak, stolen, and default passwords. We provide a next generation access platform that integrates multiple technologies of single sign on, multi factor authentication, enterprise mobility management, along with user behavior analytics, all combined with lifecycle management. We support on premise and cloud applications to provide a true hybrid environment. We're trusted by over 2,000 customers, and we are recognized as a market leader by leading analysts.